Welcome today to another Breakthrough Leadership video. I hope you watched video number 1 in the interview with John Nimmo. If you didn't, you need to go look at that video. We talked about the powerful introduction to asking questions and to the simple, repeatable, trainable, universal biblical truths that are involved in the use of questions. I called this the power of discovery. That's kind of John's word, really, but how asking the right questions leads to breakthrough. I want to tell you a little bit more about John. I didn't do that in the first video. I jumped right in because John and I are so close, it's just kind of like we're having a conversation here, letting you sit in on it. But I want to tell you a little bit more about John. John is the owner and managing broker at Southern Real Estate Group in the southern part of Illinois, down by Carbondale. And John has multiple offices, multitude of brokers that work for him, and has been incredibly successful, fastest growing real estate business in that area of the country. And he's done a lot of that through relationship building. And the amazing way that John can make you feel special about just being you. It's really a powerful technique, but I mentioned also, John, before that at times it's made me really want to punch you, and it's caused me, at times to not return his phone calls. Why? Because he probed into my life when I needed it with some of the most powerful questions that caused me to reach an inflection point about myself, about life, and about God's grace. And I'm forever grateful, but I want to share some of that with you. So, John, once again, it's great to have you here.
Great to be here. Thank you.
What else should we know about you, John? You want to tell any more about yourself?
Well, yeah, we have
so much to know.
I also have an LLC, which is called Southern Development LLC, and we operate a training, corporate training, leadership training, and development company. We have our own website there as well as the real estate company. So, here's what you need to know is, what are you passionate about? And I believe all of us have a giftedness that God has given us. And my giftedness has been the burden of helping others reach their potential. So these businesses for me are nothing more than conduit. It's a conduit to use my skills and my giftedness to help others in that way, and in business. And I sincerely believe that yes, we can be genuine and strategic at the same time.
Now, John, you're killing me here, John.
They are not mutually exclusive.
You're killing me here, John, because you got to realize that my nature in these environments is to call the question, because the reality is you're just telling me something here that makes me, if I'm listening, makes me go, oh, another one of these guys who got it right, who's perfect, and that I could never emulate. Here's a guy who's, telling me this perfect scenario of life. It's bigger than him. He's giving himself to the world. And, the bottom line is, John, you're able to do that because you've been successful and you've made money.
No, but I failed.
You failed, sure.
I failed a lot.
We're talking to business people here who want the traction of knowing that, wait a minute, John, are you talking to me about fluff? Or are you talking to me about how I can get engaged, how I can be profitable, and at the same time reach the potential that God created me to reach?
Just suppose I'm right. What if I had the tools through this simple mechanism of asking the right questions that could exponentially change your business and your life? What if that were true?
Yeah, now I'm interested.
It was a question. Let's talk about Mom's Pie for a minute.
Yeah, okay.
We ended with the intent of Mom's apple pie. And so Mom says, you're visiting, and most of us have been there maybe, but Mom says, can you stay a little longer? I've made a fresh apple pie. Would you like a piece? Question. And your reply is, man, Mom, I'm really busy. I've got to go. I really don't have time for that. So what's the intent behind the question? The intent is not necessarily the apple pie. The intent is Mom wants to spend more time with you. So we have to discern the intent of our questions, and that comes through empathic listening. So you're going to leave, and Mom says, are you sure you won't have that piece of pie? And you go, Mom, I'd love to, but I've got a schedule and I've really got to go. So Mom says, I understand, but you know, I got up this morning and I made this pie, and you know, Greg, I made this pie just for you. It's special just for you. Would you stay and have a piece? What are you going to say? This is what Jesus did to Peter. Every time he asked, the question became a little more sincere. It became a little more genuine. And so the intent sometimes behind the questions is what we have to discern, and that requires listening skills. So if you ask the questions, the genuine part is you have to legitimately care about the answers. So what is more important, the question or the answer?
Yeah, that's something that I wanted to ask you in the first video, and I postponed it, said we'd talk about it, and I'm glad you brought it up. And that is that really asking questions is just one side of the equation, right?
Well, it's one side of the question, but you can actually construct an entire presentation and do nothing but ask questions and reach a conclusion at the end to get congruency, to get influence, to add value to others, and also, if it's your intent, get a sale, because no one else will do that.
Yeah.
No one else will do that.
But as you were saying, asking the questions, it's not just about crafting questions that now you're thinking about what's the next question, right? I mean, you said that in the first video. It's like we're so busy looking past that looking to what we're going to say next. I mean, it's half the equation, because when you ask that question, now you're discovering.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is the discovery process more than anything.
The question is, are we directing or are we discovering? And this is a recent discovery for me. So there are over 1,000 references in the Bible about God having a plan for each of our lives. And most of us have been through, in business, we've been through goal-setting seminars, and we've been taught that we have to break those down into micro steps. So are they doable? Are we accountable? Are they achievable? We break those down into immediate goals, 5-year plan, what's your 10-year plan, what's your vision look like? And truthfully, if you believe in Psalm 139, that vision has already been established. We've been born with a set of gifts. So as opposed to me trying to establish my goals and direct my path according to my goals, why don't I set out a path of discovery to see what God's goals are for me?
Yeah.
And that will align me with peace and joy and success according to God's plan. So are we directing or are we discovering?
Well, how does this relate now to my interaction and relationship building in the business world? You know, I'm also discovering there, right? I mean, I agree with you. My hot button is to say, wait a minute, am I discovering? I mean, I want to point that inward, but for the moment, let's talk about how we use this in business to genuinely get traction.
Well, number one is it's much easier in business, and business is about profit. Can we agree?
Yeah.
Business is about profit. So my business is about profit, your business is about profit. I don't believe there's anything bad with that. So if I can find out, Greg, what your goals are, and I can align myself and my skills and my company with what your goals are, now we've postured ourselves to work together to achieve what you want.
Yeah.
The only way I know to do that is asking questions, because I'm on a mode of discovery.
Yeah. So can I recap that just for a second? I mean, you said that beautifully, and I don't want to step on that, but I mean, the reality is what you just talked about is so counterintuitive. It goes against people's natural order of thinking, don't you believe? Because our natural order of thinking is, you're in my market segment, I know you need what I have, therefore it's my job to convince you that I have what you need, rather than I need to understand your objectives.
Absolutely.
I need to understand. Yeah, and we find ourselves all the time being so quick to speak and so slow to really listen. I mean, I know I fought this a lot in business. I can feel the time clicking away in my head. I know the urgency. I know what the next meeting is. I have all these things, and somebody's talking, and I'm nodding my head, and I am somewhere else.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm looking past them so far, and they don't even know it.
Well, they do.
And who's losing? I'm losing.
Innately, they do know it.
Yeah.
We've all been there where you're having a conversation with someone and maybe they've asked you for a question, but your mind is somewhere else. You may be even looking at somewhere else, and you're distracted and not paying attention. So you're not validating or giving value to the person that's speaking, when in essence you're the one who's prompted the conversation, perhaps. And most of this comes down from being, we're all human, and we like to think of ourselves as being the directors and the center of our universe in business. But truthfully, it's the customer that's the center of my universe.
Yeah.
It's the other person that's the center. So how can I help you reach your goals?
John, you're saying that so well, and I love it. But it just makes me want to twist this a little bit in the next couple of minutes. So often the question on our minds, somebody's watching this video, the question is going to be, okay, yeah, but how do I use this in my business? How do I generate these complex questions? How do I come across like I'm Socrates and I'm asking some deep philosophical question that people will be amazed by? And I know from conversations you and I have had about specific deals that you've put together that you were brought in to something that seemed dysfunctional, and by asking a few simple, maybe even seemingly obvious questions, and even your tone of voice when you asked them, broke the whole thing wide open. I mean, I'm thinking of specific examples that you've told me about where you were invited into environments and simply changed the demeanor of the room by asking a few simple questions that let people know you were walking into their camp. You were in their shoes.
Yeah, sure. If it's true that people do business with they know, like, and trust.
Oh, yeah.
If that's true, how do you gain that trust? How do you make people like you? And we might know someone, but we may not like or trust them. And the power of asking questions, and it has to be genuine. It can't be scripted. It needs to be a genuine question where you're sincerely trying to inquire and get direction. So if I ask that question, then I've just added value. And if I allow you to speak completely, and I intently listen with empathy, I listen with my heart, not just my ears, I've just created a friend for life and added enough value to you that you say, I really like this guy, I really trust him, and I want a business relationship with him. And that goes for long term. Yeah. So it's a long-term business relationship which is highly profitable for both people. It's not a one-way arrow. It's not a one-way dead-end street.
Yeah.
And that's what successful business relationships, that's how I cultivate the relationship.
John, we may have to bridge over into the next video to answer this question fully. But let me just ask you one thing, point out one thing that is really critical about what you're saying. And I think it might be the question that our audience is going to really be asking, even if they're not asking it out loud. And it would be this concept that you're asking me to vest myself in this person. You see what I mean? The point is, everything we choose as business leaders or as leaders in general has an effect, has an impact on the commitments we make, the loops that we open up potentially in our lives, and what we let in. And as a really super busy business person for so many years in my life, I developed sort of defense mechanisms. I bet you everybody out here can relate to this, to where it was like, wait a minute, I don't want to know that much, because if I know that much, I have to be vested in you and in your problems and in your relationship, and really all I want to know is what I want to know. I mean, this is a real issue, right? Because I can't just ask you questions to manipulate you. Not if I want a long-term success. Not if I want to develop myself to the level that I'm the person who's achieving their greatest created value. Because that might not be a sale. It might be that I'm giving myself to this other person. You're asking us to vest ourselves in other people, and that's a huge ask, John.
Have I vested myself in
You absolutely have.
So do we spread the net far and wide, or do we spread the net narrow and deep?
Ooh.
How do you determine who you're going to partner with in business? And I think you make those determinations on the front side.
And you're intimating now that I'm partnering with a customer as well.
Oh, a client becomes a partnership.
Yeah, it's a different look.
It's a marriage, and a marriage is mutually beneficial for both parties. So when I come in to bring something to the table, my primary directive is to provide a benefit that's worth an exchange of dollars for. Because if I'm not providing a benefit, then there's no exchange.
So you're really saying that if I'm going to provide this benefit, which might mean making a sale, moving product, whatever it is, if I'm going to provide this benefit, I better select and choose and know that a part of that process is vesting myself in other people.
Has to be. It's biblical. It's professional if it's genuine. And in addition, it's explosive in terms of business growth.
That's fantastic.
Exponentially explosive.
It's fantastic. John, I love the direction that we're going with this. I love how you're explaining it. I mean, you and I have talked about this, debated this.
Well, we've been there.
We've
been through this.
We've struggled through the reality of it in so many ways. I'm so thankful to get to share this conversation with our viewers. You know, we're here for you. I mean, this conversation is intended to provide a means that you can find breakthrough in every area of your leadership. Thanks for joining us today. John, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
We're going to do one more video at least, maybe more, so look for that. Thanks for being here for this Breakthrough Leadership video.